Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here for this little dedication. It's been almost 40 years since Elsa Lanchester died. It's bizarre that nobody knew that she was actually here for this long. Just a friend of mine, Jim Lacey, who I have to give a major shout out to, a few months ago just said, "Did you know Elsa's in the Rose Garden here?" And I said, "No, are you kidding me?" So we did some research, and sure enough, and Suhail Simon from Valhalla verified it, and we were able to. There he is. There's Suhail Simon right over here, and Marcia and Domingo. So they worked with us. They have worked with us. We've done this a few times before. We had probably the most recent was the Mighty Mishu, just on the other side of the cemetery. Of course, Ken Weatherwax. Yeah. So here we go. Now, a new friend of mine, Charlotte Booker, who has an Elsa show. She travels in an Elsa show. It's called She's Alive, and a one-woman show, which I've seen clips of, and it's fantastic. And I asked Charlotte. I know her as the bride. I think most of us know her primarily as the bride. And not the bride. They called her the bride of Frankenstein, but Dr. Frankenstein was a doctor, and he wasn't his bride, it was the monster's bride, which is just kind of interesting that they called it that. And he says, the bride of Frankenstein. So, but she was actually the monster's bride. I just think it's kind of fun. But anyway, Charlotte wrote up a little bio for me because I know the bride. Charlotte knows her life. So Charlotte, lovely Charlotte, who travels with the show She's Alive, wrote this up. She says Elsa was much more than the bride of Frankenstein. She was born a socialist, a pacifist, an atheist, a suffragist, a vegetarian in London in 1902. And if that wasn't scandalous enough, her mother, Biddy, was briefly institutionalized for refusing to marry Elsa's father. And the reason they committed her to an institution is because of overeducation, was what they said for her. So it was a different time. She was sort of grown up a bohemian, and her education was spotty. She briefly attended a boys' school. She was the only female in a boys' school. And she had a brother named Waldo, who was a very well-known puppeteer, very famous puppeteer, actually. She was chosen to study dance with Isadora Duncan in Paris, and she tells great stories about Isadora Duncan. She quit the school because Isadora would sit on a big, fainting couch in the morning, and people would have to come in and kiss her hand. And Elsa's like, I'm not doing that. So she quit, which I think is quite cool. But she started doing the nightclub appearance, one-woman shows. H.G. Wells and Evelyn Waugh wrote silent film roles for her, and she was deemed the female Charlie Chaplin. She was cast in 1927 in a London play with Charles Laughton, one of the greatest actors of his generation, and they were married in 1929. 2 years later, Charles's very well-known story confessed to Elsa. She didn't catch him in the act, but he confessed to Elsa that he was indeed a homosexual. Scandalous. And what she said was, she said to him, "That's all." Well, actually, the fun part, he told her that he and this young man had sex on their sofa in the living room, and she said, "That's all right, dear. We can get rid of the sofa." They remained married for 33 years. In fact, in Soho, in London, just outside Soho, Percy Street, where the sofa incident happened, there is a blue plaque for Charles Laughton, which is a huge British honor to have a blue plaque installed on Charles Laughton's home. And very recently, they installed one in Elsa's home with their mother in Battersea. In Britain. So it's quite neat that she's getting this recognition today, her 123rd birthday. It's so exciting. And Bride of Frankenstein is 90 years this year. It just worked out perfectly. So she became, you can see these albums. She loved performing in new music halls. She did sort of naughty Victorian songs. And so that was sort of her thing. She was a bit of a naughty person. She loved, she had sort of the sly wink kind of a person. And she was just a really well-rounded entertainer. One of the last TV interviews she did, she said, I've had the happiest life of anyone I know. She died in the motion picture home at the age of 84 of pneumonia after a series of strokes. And up until this point, everyone thought that she was scattered in the Pacific Ocean. Biographers, historians, archivists, they've all said she's scattered. And so it was just fascinating that she ended up being right under our nose the whole time, actually in the Rose Garden, just over behind you guys. Not in the center bit, but she's buried. Her urn is in one of the. It's difficult to locate exactly, but she's in one of the four pieces of around the center point of that. So, and also, she's had wonderful books, wonderful documentaries. There is a biography called The Bride of the Hunchback that will be released in the UK in the next few months. And you can get her music online on YouTube, and she's just loads of fun to listen to. So a major shout out again to my friend Jim Lacey, and now I want to bring up James Bartlett, who wrote a nice piece for the BBC and was published today, and he's going to say a few words.
Hello there, everybody. Thanks for coming today. It's great to see you all. As you can tell probably from my accent, I'm from England. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me at the back? Yes. I'm from England originally, so I thought I had to represent perhaps a bit for her. Yes, there is a piece today about Elsa and about this event that's happening now on BBC, on the BBC website, bbc.com in the news section, so you can read a little bit more about her. And we did a little bit of. Just reached out to a few actors and said, "Oh, is the microphone gone? Can you still hear me?" Yes. Yes. I'll just talk normally. So we reached out to some of the actors who had worked with her in the past to see if they had any memories of her. Obviously, a lot of them are not with us, but I did manage to get in touch with Bruce Davison, who some of you'd certainly recognise his face. He's been in about 300 movies. He was Oscar nominated for A Long-Time Companion, if any of you remember that film. He was in a couple of the X-Men movies, but he was also in 1971 in Willard, which I'm sure some of you have seen. Yes, it got remade a few years ago, but he was the original. He was Willard in Willard, which is
it's Willard.
Willard, sorry. That's the English thing I was telling you about. Willard. Okay. Willard he was Willard in the movie, and it's sort of a rat horror. It's a rat horror movie. He's Willard is a young lad who's pretty lonely and unhappy, and he befriends the rats in his house, and they become his sort of friends and do his evil deeds. It's well worth seeing. But Elsa is in that. She plays his mother. She plays Henrietta, his mother, who's quite controlling and just as awful as most of the people he knows in his life. And so I contacted him about that. I said, "Do you remember her? Do you have anything?" And he was really thrilled to talk about it. He was talked very fondly of it, especially her sense of humour. He mentioned her sense of humour especially. He gave me a couple of quotes. One was about, she said, she told me, when a director is giving you a load of cod's wallop, which is an English word meaning rubbish, what you do is you say, "Oh, that's very interesting. Let me do that." And then do whatever the bloody hell you like. So that was his career advice, and he's been in 300 movies, so that wasn't too bad. I did ask him as well whether she ever talked about playing the bride, what she thought about it, whether she felt it had really affected her career, or whether it had been a good thing or a bad thing. He said she was really glad for the bride role. That was what he said. She talked about it. She understood what it had done for her. That's what he said about that. And he did tell me something amazing, which I wish he could find it. I didn't dare ask him. He said that one day on the set of Willard, he would take a Super 8 camera, which I'm sure we all remember, onto the set and film occasionally. And one day they were filming the house is just off Wilshire, down by, is it the Masonic Centre? It's an art gallery now. The house is still there, and they filmed in the house. He would take a Super 8 onto the set and film, and he filmed her one day, and she was standing at the top of the stairs, and she did The Bride of Frankenstein. Wow. She did that. And he filmed it. He did it. It was for a joke. He did it for everybody there. He did it deliberately. She did it. So and he had that on it. He's got it on Super 8 somewhere, but he doesn't know where. But he said he remembered that. So you remember that? He talked very fondly. They used to have lunch a lot at Nick Odell's, which some of you may remember, closed in the 90s. And she used to go around to his house a lot. I mean, he was only a young man. He was in his mid-20s. And he said the house was just full of artistic, creative people. Christopher Isherwood, he remembered particularly, was there one time. He had an absolutely fantastic time. So that was Bruce. He would have been here today. He's filming NCIS. He's filming NCIS. He couldn't be here today, but he said, "I send my love to this great lady and dear friend." So that was from him. And then we did get yesterday, we did get a letter from Lynn Lugosi Sparks. She did send some details through, so I'm just going to read it today. To the fans of Elsa Lanchester who are honouring her today. Although I do not have any personal stories to share with you about Elsa and my grandfather, Bela Lugosi, they did have a very important thing in common. They were part of the elite group of actors who played the classic monsters, Elsa the Bride and Bela Count Dracula. These monsters have stood the test of time, as each of their iconic performances have inspired horror films and interpretation of their characters that follows. It is so important to remember the actors behind these monsters. I realise how special it is for fans to visit the final resting place of the actors they admire and who's had such an influence on their lives. I regularly hear from people who tell me they have visited Bela Lugosi's grave to pay tribute to him. Being able to touch the gravestone and lay flowers allows for a visceral connection with him. It is wonderful that after so long, Elsa is finally being honoured with a memorial plaque that fans can visit and honour her place in Hollywood history. Not only for her role in Bride of Frankenstein, but for her many other roles in her long and successful career. As I endeavour to keep the legacy of Bela Lugosi alive for the next generations, I can appreciate the devotion and effort it took to make this dedication to Elsa Lanchester possible. Congratulations to Scott and to all those who contributed to the creation of the plaque. I'm sorry I could not be there in person to join the celebration, but I look forward to visiting soon. Lynn Lugosi Sparks. So with that, I think I'll hand back to you, Scott.
I promise I'll try to keep this short. I promise. So I put together. Let me turn this up a tiny bit, maybe. Okay. Is this thing on?
Yes.
Is that how many times has that been said? Okay. Right. So this is something I just put together myself. A little bit more about us too. You know, as I mentioned, Johnny Arthur, Jonathan Hale, Thelma Pellish, James Anderson, Mishu, and Ken Weatherwax, who's just down the middle of the road, Pugsley Adams. It was Halloween. It was about 4 years ago, I think, that we marked him. So it's an honor to do this. And now Elsa, on her 123rd birthday. So this came about a few months ago. I mentioned to you about my buddy Jim, who mentioned it to me, who lives in Ohio. We trade death certificates. It's like trading cards for us. This is really happening. This is really happening. Okay, well, hopefully. Okay, I'm not going to touch it. So then, as I mentioned, I got in touch with Sue Hale at Valhalla, who's worked with us before, and they were so generous with their time and letting us do this. And Elsa, I mean, the only female monster. I mean, she's iconic. You know, you can name female horror leads, scream queens, things like that. But and of course, the females played monsters in the movies. But Elsa, I mean, my God, and for 7 minutes on film in that movie, only 4 as the bride, and not a word spoken by the bride in that film. I think that is just a testament to her, and the fact that so many people emulate that hairdo. You know what I mean? That's become Madeline Kahn did it, and Magenta in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know, they did that like Hostess cupcake swirly thing, and that was her hair. I mean, there's a museum in New York that has a wig, and they say it's hers. But it was her hair. They put a wire thing in it, and they brought it all up, and she had it done every morning at Universal. She had her makeup done, I believe, at the Garden of Allah, which is where they were staying at the time. And then she was angry with the makeup guy, too, because she said, you could have just bought plastic scars and put them on her, but he was doing like 5 hours worth of these scars and stuff. It was kind of funny. And she was funny too. She would she was all wrapped up, and at the beginning of the movie, all you saw were her eyes for the longest time. And she said that her eyes were like burning because they made her keep them open all the time. But the set was so hot, and when she had this sort of dress thing on, she was bawdy, you know. She did her Cockney songs, and she just flashed the crew. You know, I mean, it wasn't lascivious. It was just funny. You know, she was hot, and she was going to be comfortable and get a laugh out of it. So, but she had the marvelous gift of making everything just a little bit alive, peculiar, and more fun. Of course, the bride, but then there were so many other roles that she took on. My favorite Elsa period is sort of the 70s Elsa. You know, that's when I got turned on to her. And when you're talking about movies like Murder by Death, and Arnold, which is one of my favorite movies. It's such a weird movie about Stella Stevens who marries a dead guy. It's so good. So she did Terror in the Wax Museum, and of course Willard. And also one of my favorite episodes of Night Gallery. And if you remember Elsa Lanchester, she lived in a house that wanted to be bought by developers. She refused to leave it. She loved puttering around in her garden, which is kind of cool because she's in the rose garden right across the street right now. And she said, everything grows here. I've got green fingers. It's kind of cool. So, and also people often wonder why Elsa's not with Charles Laughton. When he died in 1962, they didn't make preparations for their death. I believe that they bought it at need. When he died, they said, well, we got to buy a grave now. So she wasn't make arrangements for her. He's full burial at Forest Lawn, but she didn't like Forest Lawn. She chose not to be buried there. She called it the Ogre of the Sticks, the river, because of the commercialization. They were trying to sell her more things and more things. And she just, I do not want to be there. She didn't want anyone to know where she was. She didn't want anyone to know where her funeral was. She just wanted to go under the radar. So I felt it a nice sort of compromise, because Elsa, we're not marking her grave. This is a cenotaph symbolizing her grave, which is across the street. So I think it's a good compromise. I really do. So it also gives Elsa the sort of the aloneness and the privacy she wanted, but it also a place where we can all come and pay our respects for her. But if you want to leave flowers, she's over there, just so you know. And so here we are paying tribute to Elsa, who can make us laugh, startle us, charm us, and make us feel like the world is a little more magic. So I want to thank a couple of people for helping out. Suhail, Dominga, and Marcia from the cemetery. Thank you for being here today. I just met Jo Beth for the first time today. Where's Jo Beth? Jo Beth, where are you? There you are. Jo Beth is Elsa at Universal Studios. Oh. And do you have a second to talk about, you were telling me about those wonderful do you mind? I want to put you on the spot. I don't. If you'd rather not. Okay. I love what you told me. I love what you told me.
Yeah. So, I've obviously, as you can tell by the way I kind of present, I've always been a fan of Elsa. And it's been incredibly, incredibly special to be able to portray one of her characters. And it's so important to me to play it the way she played her, because I'm trying to be, what she created. And it's so wonderful to be in the position to every day see how much she meant to people, because people come up to me every day and there are always at least a couple people who come up to me with tears in their eyes and they'll give me a hug and say, I love you so much. You mean so much to me. You have no idea how much you mean to me. And they're not talking to me. Like they're talking to Elsa. And so that legacy that she left, that is still so visceral and strong, and tiny little children who already love her. And so it's being her work is being passed on generation to generation. And that's just, it's so incredible. And I'm so fortunate that I get to see that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, we do have a last-minute guest here, actually. Bruce has turned up. Oh!
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I was really, really lucky. Elsa got to play my mother in Willard, and she was the closest one to me on the set that I got to be. She really was wonderful. There was an opportunity. I don't know whether James had said or not, but she gave me great acting advice to start with. We shot in Paramount, and we used to go over to Nicodell's for lunch. And one day, I said, I was going through a rough time trying to do it as a young kid. I was in my 20s. And she said, well, let me give you some advice. As an actor, when a director is giving you a load of codswallop, say, that's very interesting. That's very good. Let me try to incorporate that into what I'm doing, and then do whatever the bloody hell you want. I had a great opportunity to spend time with her at her home, and she had collected a stone on the beach, a sandstone, and it was shaped like this. It went down, and then it had a thing like that with a big nose on the end, and she kept it on her mantelpiece, and she called it her de Gaulle stone. She had that wonderful sense of humor, and she had a big tree trunk upside down next to her with all the branches cut off of it, and they were all going up like that. And right in the middle, she'd painted a little black head of hair and a little mustache, and it was all hidden. That was her sense of humor. She had wonderful gatherings and soirees at her house, and Christopher Isherwood, I remember meeting there, and Don Bacardi, who I got to know later. But I asked her one time, we were sitting there, and I said, she said, you know, Charles, I wanted to tell you that, you know, don't worry about things that happen that fail you, because that can kill you, because later on you never know. And we built a house on Pacific Palisades, and it started to fall into the ocean, and that was killing Charles. And then he made a Night of a Hunter, and it was panned, and it failed. And it's now one of the greatest classic movies of all time. But she says those were the two things that really ended his life. He really sort of gave up after that. But what I remember more than anything else about her was her love. I mean, she just would put her arms around you and say, let me take care of you. She was really that woman. Here, I'm here. Let me take care of you. I'll show you what to do. I'll show you how to survive in this town. But always remember, it's Burt Lancaster and it's Elsa Lanchester.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, and thank you so much for coming. What an honor to actually have someone here that knew her. Thank you. So I wanted to just thank everyone for being here, and let's just say here's to Elsa, the bride, the bohemian, and the
To Elsa.
Woo! Now I think Jesus is here. Is Jesus here, please? Oh. There he is, Jesus. Okay, thank you. Jesus is going to do the honor of placing Elsa's marker.